Boom, and we are live. Gentlemen, today we are going to discuss the 20 high value male archetypes. We're going to go through the spectrum so you can see exactly how men are ranked and how to move through the spectrum. As we go through this presentation, one thing that will be very helpful is to just pay attention to the different archetypes, see how they work. You'll notice that you'll probably fall in one of these archetypes or you'll fall in multiple of these archetypes. But the main point of this spectrum is to really understand these archetypes. Most men misunderstand these archetypes and they try to pick one or identify with one of them. And that's not the point of this spectrum. What these archetypes are actually for is to explain patterns of behavior and outcomes. They show how different types of men operate. They reveal why some men gain leverage and others stall or they stagnate. And these archetypes are not labels, they're diagnostic tools. They help you have more of that awareness, more of that clarity of where you fall and how you can improve your archetype or tailor it in a direction that will give you more leverage and will benefit you more in your current goals and endeavors. So this ordering is not moral, it's functional. The high value male spectrum is a framework that maps 20 archetypes and shows where they fall between structure and instability. The spectrum allows immediate clarity. It shows where a man currently operates, which archetypes build long-term value, and which directions lead towards strength or gradual decay. Let's go ahead and jump into the screen share so I can show you guys the breakdown. So the high value male archetype. So the best way that you can read this archetype, let me make sure that I'm outside of the frame, is that it moves from left to right. It starts from the structure, like more structured, to freedom, to instability. And the structure just gives you power because you understand like where you lie. On the left hand side, more rigid, more structure. In the middle, there's more freedom, more flexibility. And then on the right hand side, there's less structure and then more instability. So ideally, you want to be more on the left hand side of this diagram because that's where the true power lies. The farther you start going to the right is where there's just more instability and you just start having more friction with your archetype. And there's 20 main archetypes that you'll typically see amongst men, at least high value, high performing men. For me, it became very easy seeing these archetypes is because once I started traveling Latin America, traveling the world, Asia, all these different places, I started seeing a lot of these different patterns amongst different cultures, different societies, and different countries. So I really started to pinpoint exactly how these archetypes come into play. And we're all different. So you'll notice that you're gonna fall somewhere else compared to me, compared to the lifestyle that I live, and that's completely fine. It's just having the clarity and that awareness is where the leverage lies, because now you know exactly where you operate, and if there's anything that you need to change with your archetype, you can always do so. So on the left hand side, we have the high structure, high standards, high responsibility quadrant. And here is where you will find men who build disciplined lives. They carry heavy responsibility and create power that compounds over time. That's the reason why it's on the left hand side, is because these men are more structured, they're more disciplined and more rigid. They have to follow like more systems, more of a disciplined lifestyle to operate. So the first one that we have is the executive. And the executive, got my boy Jeff Bezos over here. The executive is mostly concerned about building systems. He commands authority and he thinks in decades. He thinks in the long-term vision. Examples of this, like I said, would be like Jeff Bezos, especially when he was barely starting with Amazon, the Amazon era, when he was getting it off the ground. Another type of examples that you will see also would be like Donald Trump, you know, the current president of the US. A lot of these guys that are just so dedicated to their craft, they're very disciplined and they have to build these systems to operate at a high level. The next archetype we have is the corporate operator, and here we got Tim Cook. This is the CEO of Apple, and these guys are mostly concerned about hierarchy, of being politically calibrated, optimizes large structures. So these are like CEOs, right? Like they operate very efficiently within corporations, within systems that are already in place. There's a lot of guys that operate like this. Another guy that I think that comes to mind would be like CEOs. That's the best way that you can think about it. If you look at any CEO in a company, they're masters of that hierarchy, and because they're on top of that hierarchy, they have to present a very polished, very structured image to run that company effectively. The next one we have is the gentleman. So this is like my boy David Beckham. David Beckham is one of the best soccer players, arguably. And when I think about David Beckham, if you see how the way that he dresses, like he's a very like gentleman type of guy, right? Like he's very polished. He knows how to dress, but he also has that charisma that a lot of gentlemen carry. And this is control strength, social intelligence, high composure under pressure. And this is the typical features that you will see in the gentleman archetype. The next one that you have is the visionary founder. And the visionary founder, this is the best way that I can think about this is like startup founders. And the one that quickly comes to mind is Elon Musk. He's future focused, high risk tolerance, creates leverage from vision. And a lot of like early CEOs, they start off like this. Another guy that I really respect and admire would be like Dana White. You saw Dana White in the early years of the UFC. He was building that empire, but if you see a lot of his interviews, he talks about like how he was trying to start the UFC, the vision that he had for growing it, how he started off like in the backyard, just like a fence, and then a couple fighters, and then gradually started growing the business. And if you're trying to start a business, you'll probably fall in this category. I would consider that I fall in this category a lot because, trying to start this brand, trying to build it as well, the vision that I see for this company, this consulting, a lot of it is future oriented, and I think a lot about building the right systems for it. And the next one we have is the protector. So the protector is more concerned about stability. They're driven by stability. They're reliable in crisis, provide security and structure. And an easy example would be like Chris Hemsworth. Like if you see a lot of his interviews as well, he's a big family man. He focuses a lot of the prosperity of his family and just making sure that his family is okay, taking care of them and providing everything that they need. So protector can be anyone, right? It's like the traditional patriarch, the traditional father figure that is just trying to do the best for his family. The next one we have is the cowboy or the Paisa Latino variant. So the cowboy is independent, pride-based, masculinity, traditional code. Examples of this, just so you can have a better idea, would be like George Strait. For Mexican Americans, you will know Joan Sebastian. These are these type of guys that they have more of that cowboy lifestyle. They dress the part, they look good, they have the cowboy hat, and they're more rugged individuals. And you'll also notice that as we start going through the spectrum to the right, like it starts to become more flexible, like more freedom within these men, right? Because if you go to the very first archetype, Jeff Bezos, this guy is very structured, runs so many systems, has so many employees, that he has to present more of a disciplined archetype. Now that we're on the cowboy variant, like this guy also has the same lifestyle, but now it's a bit more flexible because he does it more on his own terms, right? If he owns a ranch, if he has that agriculture lifestyle, he can do it more on his terms, but he still has to abide by certain systems and structures, right? To make sure that everything is running correctly. The next archetype that we have is the gym bro. So the gym bro embodies discipline, physically visible standards, identity built on self-control. And one of the best examples that I can think about is Jesse James West. Also, David Goggins could also fall in this category. But these guys are your typical gym bro, man. It's the guy that you see at the gym pumping iron. And I would also consider that I fall in this category. This is what I was mentioning, is that you're going to see that you fall in multiple of these archetypes. And that's the point. you want to have multiple of these archetypes. You're not just one dimensional. A lot of guys want to be one dimensional, and that's not ideal. You want to operate across this spectrum. That's the best way to put it, because when you're versatile like that, you can really be effective in different realms and areas of life. So start thinking about that as we go through this presentation, where you fall under. Write it down, make some notes, because this is really going to give you that clarity to operate efficiently. The next archetype we have is the digital nomad, and now we start going into the second quadrant, which is the balanced, flexible, context-driven masculinity. And here you will find men who adapt to different environments and lifestyles where outcomes depend on how much structure they maintain. So here, these are still high-value men, but they have more flexibility. And I would say a lot of my archetypes fall here because, you know, I'm an online entrepreneur, I travel, and I have more autonomy in my lifestyle. And like I said, you might not fall in this category. You might be somewhere in here as well. But the point is that you have your own style. You have to just know what is the style that benefits you the most. Going into the second one, the digital nomad. So the digital nomad, this is more of a freedom first lifestyle, high autonomy, outcome depends on self-discipline. And a great example of this would be Dan Bilzerian. This is like the aesthetic version, because, you know, Dan Bilzerian is like a multi-millionaire. But if you see his lifestyle, he likes to travel, he likes to go to different countries, experience different environments. And I also resonate heavily with this lifestyle. You know, I like to go to different countries. I love being in Colombia, South America, and Mexico, because I like changing my lifestyle. I don't like just being in one location. I like having the freedom to go where I want. And I also like the excitement that it brings from traveling. So I would say that right now, currently, like I'm a visionary founder, and I also lean into that digital nomad. And occasionally I go into that cowboy paisa archetype as well when I'm visiting family in Mexico. I grew up a lot with this type of archetype because of my family and my culture being Mexican American. But the next archetype that we have is the creative artist. And the creative artist is street calibrated, dominance, social intelligence in competitive environments. An example of this would be like Kanye West, 50 Cent. I think Kanye West resonates a lot more with this because he doesn't really care about other people's opinions as much, and he expresses himself creatively. And that's the epitome of what the creative artist is. The next thing we have is the urban alpha. So the urban alpha is more expressive. Original structure determines whether genius compounds or implodes. Another great example of this would be 50 Cent. And Conor McGregor is also a great example of this. But if you remember during like 50 Cent's rise, when he was barely getting started, when he had that movie Get Rich or Die Trying, like he really expressed that dominance, like in his demeanor, the way that he dressed. Dude, if you see the picture right here, like he has that bulletproof vest, got the chain, got the tattoos, the fitted baseball cap facing backwards. So 50 Cent is a great example of this because he's an alpha, and he's very expressive in the image that he carries. The next archetype that we have is the street edgy archetype. And this is more controlled rebellion. It's aesthetic driven. These type of guys are more edgy. They push that boundary, and they don't really care too much about what other people think. And a great example of this would be like Travis Scott, the way that he dresses. I would say that I also fall into this archetype every now and then when I'm at the gym or whenever I am just making some of these videos. It's just like, it's edgy. I kind of do my own thing. And this is what you can think about when it comes to the straight edgy archetype. The next archetype that we have is the flow athlete. So the flow athlete could be like a skateboarder, a surfer, anything that requires a board. Great example of this would be like Tony Hawk. It's anti-corporate, independent, high risk, tolerance, values, freedom over status. So they don't really care about like status. They care more about like just doing their thing, having that freedom. Then we have the geek tech operator. This is skill-based, leverage, analytical, gains power through competence. Great example of this would be Mark Zuckerberg. Like when you think about Mark Zuckerberg, man, like he's a geek, right? Like he's a tech CEO, But this is very powerful because these are some of the most high paying industries. So a lot of, these tech operators make good money, but also they're very intelligent and analytical. When I graduated school, started working, even right now, right? Like working in cybersecurity and doing a lot of tech. Like I also fall into this archetype occasionally. Then we have the spiritual seeker. So this is purpose oriented, introspective, risk of detachment from execution. A great example of this would be Russell Brand when he was going through like that whole reinvention stage. He was more like he was looking for more spiritual insight. And then the next archetype we have is the playboy. Great example, Leonardo DiCaprio. Like we all know that he's a playboy. Like he's always dating like different models. And these guys are more charismatic, socially fluid, short-term attraction. High long-term stability varies, so they're not really looking to get into long-term relationships. They want more of that, like that short-term fun, that short-term attraction. And I would say that I also fall into this category, especially like being single. Occasionally I go into this archetype whenever I'm dating. My dating life is more around this playboy archetype. Then we have the blue collar man. So this is the hardworking, practical, strength through reliability and consistency. Great example of this would be Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. The way that show is just set up, right? Like he does a lot of different blue collar jobs. And this is your typical plumber, HVAC. This is the archetype that you can think about. And as you notice that now that we're deeper into the spectrum, like the structure, the freedom has changed dramatically. We went from the executive, Jeff Bezos with those systems, all the way to Mike Rowe, the blue collar man. So you can see it's completely different. And then finally, towards the end of the spectrum, we have the low structure, low discipline, low stability. And here you'll find men who lack consistent standards and direction, causing their status, respect, and results to remain unstable. So the main thing to note here is that you don't really want to be on this side of the spectrum. If you do identify that you are on this side of the spectrum, you kind of want to start making your way towards the left side of the diagram, because this is where you start seeing like those signs of like gradual decay, right? There's some issues in the way that you're operating, the way that that archetype is structured. And yeah, like you just don't want to be over here. And the first one that we have on this side would be the nice guy. So the nice guy is the approval seeking, avoids confrontation, suppresses assertiveness. Jim Halpert is a great example. Like he seems like a good dude, chill, laid back, but he's more known as the nice guy, man. Like he doesn't command too much presence. He kind of just goes with the flow. And this is where we start treading into that dangerous zone of male archetypes, right? I will still consider them high value men because they're still successful in their own way. But if you stay here too long, it can cause serious issues going forward. The next archetype that we have, got my boy Michael Cera there, is the soft masculine. So here, this is low dominance, drive, passive leadership, avoids hierarchical competition, and these guys try to play it safe, right? They're more soft. They don't have that assertiveness, that vigor that a lot of the guys on the left side of the spectrum usually have. Then we have the rebel and nonconformist. And the rebel, he rejects structure without building replacement systems, freedom without direction. Great example with this, Johnny Depp, with his volatile career phase. He started not caring too much about what people thought. Also, Kanye West, I will say he starts to go into this side of the spectrum. Right now, recently, what I've been seeing with Shia LaBeouf, I would say that he's kind of rebelling a lot more on the way that he just operates. And that puts him more into this category here of being rebels, right? Like being nonconformists and not trying to go too much with the flow. And then the final archetype is the dark triad anti-hero. And these guys are typically more magnetic but manipulative. They have short-term power, long-term collapse risks, Great example of this would be like Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street. Very intelligent guy, very smart, ambitious, but he has like that dark side, right? Where a lot of his actions were to basically screw over people. And again, like, these guys are successful, but you got to start watching those dark characteristics, because they can really damage your image and damage your brand and reputation. So this would be like the 20 male archetypes that you'll typically see amongst men. In the future video, we're going to be talking about the archetypes that create low value men. Like I said, on the left hand of the spectrum, you find structure, responsibility, and that usually compounds over time. If you are running these type of systems like Jeff Bezos, you got your system running, you're growing your company, you start to invest, you just start to compound that leverage and that power. And consistent discipline and responsibility create momentum that increases status, influence, and results over time. Going back to the middle section with the balanced, flexible, context-driven masculinity, this is high variance and really depends on structure. Flexible lifestyles where success or instability depends on the discipline the man maintains. So here, you have to be extra disciplined. And an easy way that I can describe this is like the digital nomad lifestyle, right? Since you are a digital nomad, you can travel anywhere. You have that autonomy to do what you want. It's very easy to go like the hedonistic route and just chase pleasure, you know, not work on your craft, not work on a business, not work on your skills. And you can easily start drifting to the right side of the spectrum where there's more instability. So here, this is just more discipline driven. As you see these archetypes, just see where you fall in. You're probably going to be in 4 to 6 of these different archetypes, and we're all different. We're all different, and you have your own superpower, and I have my own superpower. So just see where you fall, see where your strengths lie, and if you are more towards this right side of the low structure archetypes, just recognize it, right? Have that clarity, and then we could start making the adjustments and move towards the left-hand side of the diagram. This is the whole point of this diagram, is to get that clarity and awareness. And a great public figure that we can dissect right now would be Conor McGregor. So Conor McGregor, everyone knows Conor McGregor. He's one of my favorite MMA fighters. One of my favorite, just like, dude in general, just the way that he carries himself, like his demeanor, the way that he dresses. I think that he's really the epitome of a high value guy. And if we were to break down Conor McGregor's different archetypes, the primary archetype that he operates from is the urban alpha. His core identity is very dominant. That's his operating system. He has territorial dominance, hyper competitive, intense eye contact, social hierarchy awareness, verbal aggression, alpha posture, and physical presence. He doesn't seek approval, he establishes rank. Urban alpha is about presence plus intimidation plus status positioning. And that's Conor McGregor. Like the way that he always moves, like you see all his interviews, all of his altercations, like when he was fighting Khabib, you know, trying to get under his skin. Also with Floyd Mayweather, he presents that strong urban alpha energy. 50 Cent would also be another one, especially when he was barely coming up. And a strong secondary archetype for Conor McGregor would be the playboy, the high status version, right? He always flashes his wealth. He has custom suits, watches, yachts, the loud lifestyle branding, sexual confidence, the way that he positions his body language. You always see, if you go check out his Instagram right now, like he's always with like different models. He has different women in his on his page, in his pictures, in his videos. And the key distinction here is that his playboy energy works because it's anchored to that urban alpha dominance, right? He started his career fighting in the UFC, and a lot of that has contributed to the different archetypes that he has. A lot of women are attracted to guys like this. And without that dominance, if he didn't have like that dominance of knowing how to fight, it would come off as corny flexing. With dominance, he becomes an aspirational icon. That's why I always mention, guys, that it's important to learn how to fight, like learn how to box, learn how to do some MMA, some jiu-jitsu, some Muay Thai, because it really gives you that frame, that strong gravitas that is powerful in other aspects of life, right? Since he knows how to fight, he knows that he starts talking smack, like he can back it up. And also just women are just naturally attracted to that. And that archetype for McGregor would be like the protector. This one is real but contextual. And the reason why it fits is because he's a professional fighter, right? He's literally a warrior. He knows how to fight. He knows how to, he's dangerous. He can really hurt someone. And he also represents Ireland with tribal pride. He talks about family protection. He talks about like the legacy and passing on his legacy with his kids, passing on the McGregor name. And that archetype for him is also the gym bro, because he's always in the gym. Like you always see him training. He has training obsession, performance aesthetics, visible gym culture presence. Like he's always in the gym. Like he's always training. You always see his stories. He's in the gym. He's doing his thing. His training is more for combat dominance, not mirror validation. I resonate a lot with this because I don't really care too much about like that aesthetic part. Even though it's a plus, especially when it comes to dating, I care more about like just being a weapon. I care more about being effective. And that's where his gym bro aesthetic comes into play. And then another conditional archetype is that he's also the executive, because again, he's building his empire, that business expansion with proper 12, media, narrative control, long-term fight strategy when focused. He stepped into that alpha, that executive energy. And when impulsive, he occasionally falls out of it, right? He gets like reckless and he starts going into like that dark triad rebel archetype. And that is exactly what his shadow side is, right? He has that dark triad anti-hero archetype. And the main visible traits that you'll see is when he starts like narcissistic signaling. He has that ego volatility. You know, he's been having a lot of like legal controversies, impulsive. Shia LaBeouf also comes to mind, like a guy that's like a fresh example of this. A lot of negative media on him right now. And he can sometimes push that aggressiveness to an unhealthy level. And the dark triad anti-hero fuels that short-term frame, but destabilizes long-term legacy. So you have to really check it, right? Don't let it control and become your main archetype. So this would be like his updated final card. He would have that urban alpha energy, 5 stars. Then he will go into that playboy. He has that playboy energy, 4 stars. The executive, when disciplined, he has that 4 stars because he started a lot of his own labels. He started a lot of different companies, so he's been very successful in business. He has that protector energy as well, capacity-based, gym bro, performance-driven. And then finally, that dark triad anti-hero shadow. So this would be his final card. This is the main point of these archetypes, to know where you fall and see exactly how you operate. But going forward, I'm going to be making a lot of videos just like this in this format, because it's just a lot easier to dissect these more complicated topics, and I think it's just better. It's more interactive. I can show you guys on my screen and we can really break it down. And I'll probably start making a lot more of these live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays around 8 p.m. Central Time. So that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern Time and 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Let me know what archetypes you think that you embody. Put them down in the comments. If you need help with maximizing your image, maximizing your grooming, your style, you can always reach out to me. Shoot me a DM. I do have my Instagram page. Let me go ahead and show you guys here. This is my Instagram page. You can find me at jmedinacx7. You can see the behind the scenes, the lifestyle. Right now I'm traveling. You know, I'm traveling all over South America. And I'm also under the same handle on TikTok. And also, if you want personal one-on-one coaching, I'm also doing that as well. I got a couple of guys that are working with me on my 90-day pilot. And this pilot is driven to give you very specific results. I'm doing a 12-session program where we meet every week. We assess where you're currently at, maybe some things that are holding you back, and where we can improve it. You can set up a discovery call with me. I have my Calendly links here. I'll put them all in the bio below. We can get together and we can assess what's the best strategy for you. As always, stay fresh and stay confident.